Well, hello again. This is Mike from Music City. Welcome to our latest edition of Ranking Records. Today we're going to look at a year again, a year in music, and that year is 1980, and we're going to look at what my favorite records were from 1980. We had recently done 78 and 79, which are by far my two favorite years in music, and I really hadn't thought about continuing sequentially, but I got a number of requests to continue on and do 80. I'm thinking if I would have been doing them sequentially, I would have started earlier, but maybe at just some point in time we'll start going backwards from 78. But let's look at 1980, and 80 was a strange year for me. I left living right outside of New York City to move to San Antonio, Texas, and oh gosh, it was not a very fertile area for rock music back in the day. It was a real heavy metal town back then, and it was really hard tuning into things. I finally discovered Austin wasn't too far away, and I was able to keep in touch. But you would go into record stores in San Antonio and see all these great new releases come out, and I'm saying, how do people even know about these things without any really good radio in town? And people would tell me you got to read music magazines, and that's a lot of what I did, and was able to eventually, like I said, plug into Austin and actually even get Austin radio in my house too, and really keep up with things. But getting on to 1980, when I did take a look at it, it took me a while to focus in on what my 10 favorite records were from that year. It didn't see the depth that I had previously seen in 78, 79, and there's some great records, and again, just to caution you, these are my likes and my interests. I'm not a jazz person. I'm not into funk or R&B very much, so it would be, it would be unusual for one of those to creep in. And then I did have the concern about doing this is that you're going to see a lot of the artists that I picked on in 78 and 79 as being favorite records, and I was reluctant. I just didn't want to make this be a rehash of these same artists again, but, well, when you see the albums from these artists that repeat, you're going to realize I had no choice. They're such great records. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and hey, I'm making the rules. I can do whatever I want, and we're going to give you 11 this time instead of 10, and I want to start off number 11 with a really great record that you may not know about. That is the debut album from the British band Any Trouble. It's called Where Have All the Nice Girls Gone? And Any Trouble was led by this fella right here named Clive Gregson. And look at those Buddy Holly type glasses. It's also, this record's on Stiff Records. Okay, the similarities between Any Trouble and early Elvis Costello, there are some. But nonetheless, don't let it scare you away. This is just a great, great pop new wavy record. I've been listening to it this morning while I've been getting ready here. It's just delightful. It does a cover of Springsteen's Growing Up. They also do a live cover of ABBA's Name of the Game. Just a good band. They put on a couple albums after this. Clive Gregson later went on to be a more of a folk singer, a singer-songwriter vein. Actually lived here in Nashville for a while. Go to my blog, musiccitymike.net. I did a recent interview with him in my 11 questions to a Nashville musician. You'll enjoy that, but if you don't know this record, I would definitely pick it up. Any Trouble, Where Have All the Nice Girls On? Now let's get into the 10. Number 10, I went with End of the Century by the Ramones. Not liked by some Ramones fans as maybe being a little too soft, especially when in contrast with those earlier, more punky records. But I personally think their songwriting got better. Yeah, it is a little more of a pop record. Produced by Phil Spector. How about that one? A lot of strange stories about how they got together in the studio, but I really enjoy this record. The lead-up track, Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? Just a fantastic song. This came out after the Rock and Roll High School movie. You will find Rock and Roll High School on here as well. They do a cover of the Spector Baby I Love You, and strangely enough, would you believe that was their biggest UK hit ever, was Baby I Love You by the Ramones? That's pretty strange. And there's also a cover of a song called Chinese Rock on here, which I know is a Johnny Thunder song, and you will never see Johnny Thunder's name on the record. I don't know what happened about that. Maybe, I don't know what happened there, but again, a great record by the Ramones, End of the Century. Number 9, I'm going to go with Starting Over by John and Yoko, John Lennon, Yoko Ono. Now, I'm not the biggest John Lennon fan of his solo work. I mean, there's some really unusual records that he put out, Somewhere in New York City, the Two Versions record. But this is just solid Lennon. I really think that some of his best solo work is here. I mean, he did a great homage to the 50s with the song Just Like Starting Over. You got Beautiful Boy, Woman. Sadly, we know this was John's last album while he was still alive. But just like I said, I think some of the best songs, if not the best, out of the Lennon solo catalog. Now, the thing about this record, you may recall, is that every other song is a Yoko song. And I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of Yoko Ono's music. It's just not my taste, not my style. I know some people that went so far as to make cassette copies of this, skipping over the Yoko songs. I didn't go that far. I listened to the album through, but it's the John songs that I prefer on that. So number 9 was Starting Over by John and Yoko. Number 8, the debut album by U2, Boy. Boy. What a strange choice of exclamation there. But this record really made a big splash, as you know, and U2 hit the map with this one. To me, it's still probably one of my favorite records in their catalog. I got to see them live at this time. And, it's got, of course, the main song being I Will Follow. I remember seeing them live at a club, and I think they opened the show and they closed the show with I Will Follow. I just think it's a great, solid record. And one of my recollections about this record, and I talked to a musical friend of mine at the time, and what struck me was Bono's voice, in many aspects, served more as an instrument than it did just as a purveyor of lyrics. And I think that was very unique to the sound on this record was Bono's voice. And of course, maybe as we got later on, the lyrics became more and more important with U2, topical and meaningful. But back then, I mean, in a lot of respects, it was just like another instrument in the band. But not to say the songs weren't well written or well crafted, but I thought it was kind of different back at the time. Number 7, Sandinista by The Clash. Wow. What an ambitious project. A triple record set. If we were going to do the top 10 triple record sets of all time, I don't even know if there are 10 that, aren't, have live records to go with them. But just a very ambitious project. Yeah, there may be some songs in here that I've forgotten or not familiar with, but the stuff that I liked in this album I thought was just great. Vintage Clash, a lot of diversity on the record in style. But things like Magnificent 7, Hits for the UK, Police on My Back, just really good stuff. And I did play this a lot back in the day, and to me, one of my favorite Clash albums, probably right there behind London Calling. Number 6, our old friends, the Police, Zenyatta, Dada, which I believe was their 3rd record. And, we had a piece a while back on bands we learned to dislike, and we talked about how a lot of us just kind of lost interest in Sting. But, wow, when I look back at this record, every track is familiar. Every track is just rock solid good. The band was just on fire back then. Don't Stand So Close to Me, Da Da Da, Driven to Tears. An excellent record by the Police. Now, number 5, and this was a record I almost skipped over. And I realized the reason I was doing it because it's not my favorite record by the band members. I can't say band in this case, and you'll see why. But that's Seconds of Pleasure by Rockpile. Yeah, I mean, I think that Rockpile, and we have a video on Rockpile, there were better efforts by Rockpile under the separate names of Lowe and Edmonds. But when they came together by this, it wasn't my favorite album by them, but gosh, it was still good. I mean, songs like Teacher, Teacher, When I Write the Book, Heart. You even had Billy Bremner, the 3rd, singer in the band, singing Heart and a couple other songs. Just a good record. You know, it sort of was the end of Rockpile, and still holds up well today. And you know, Nick still does songs like "When I Write the Book" and "Heart" in his live shows today. So, number 5, "Seconds of Pleasure" by Rockpile. Number 4, we got another debut album in the bunch, and that's the debut of The Pretenders. One of my biggest regrets about this record is that it came out and they started touring right when I moved to Texas. So I missed all those great Pretenders shows in the New York area that I could have got to see, and it took me a couple years to eventually see him in Austin. You know, and I did get to see the original lineup. As you know, 2 of the members died tragically of drug problems. But again, one of the greatest debut records. Chrissie Hynde, just such a talented songwriter and singer. And, you know, Nick Lowe produced the first single, which is on here, "Stop Your Sobbin'." He did not produce the rest of the album. I want to say it's Chris Thomas. Am I correct on that? But gosh, it's got "Brass in Pocket" on here, which is probably, in my opinion, one of the best songs of the 80s in terms of, you know, in terms of the pop new wave genre. Just a fantastic song. Chrissie's singing is great. The band is just solid. One of the best debut records ever. All right, now we come to the final 3. And okay, I'm sorry, it's my 3 favorite artists again that we're gonna repeat. We've done ranking records on all of these 3, but as you'll see, I just couldn't ignore these records. And it was tough to slot them in, and I really thought, okay, what did you play the most? What has lasted with you the most before I kind of put them in 1, 2, 3? And I like to see how many of you may want to put it a little differently. But number 3 is the fantastic album by Elvis Costello and the Attractions, "Get Happy." 20 songs on this record. 20 songs that you know, and there was so much crammed on this record. I know that the U.S. pressing didn't sound very good because of the way Columbia pressed it, and the British pressing had a much better sound to it. Unfortunately, on CD it came out, we got you know, much more of the quality restored. But just you know, song after song, so many Costello classics, 2 great cover versions that were hits. "I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down," that was a hit. One there's not. And "I Stand Accused." Yeah, there another cover version. That wasn't necessarily a hit though. Just so many classic Costello songs that have survived the canon. A lot of different styles throughout. Just one of his best. I know a lot of my friends think this is their favorite album of all, claim this to be their favorite album of all time, so they're not going to be happy with my slotting at number 3, but there it goes. Number 2, "The River" by Bruce Springsteen. A very ambitious double record set. Started out as a single, and he made it a double. Just so many classic Springsteen songs. We got to hear a lot of these songs, at least I did, on the 78 Darkness tour before this record came out, so a lot of them were familiar. If I had to say, you know, maybe the 4 sides would have been better as 3 sides. You know, maybe there's a couple of fillers, weaker songs in the Springsteen catalog, but the good stuff in here is just fantastic. "Ties That Bind" kicks off the record. "Out in the Street." It's got his hit single, "Hungry Heart." That was meant for the Ramones. Did you know that? He first gave that to the Ramones, and they didn't cover it. But again, "The River." And we got in 2016 was the River Tour, where Bruce and the E Street Band celebrated the 35th year of its release, and did the album in entirety. Got to see a couple of those shows. It was fantastic to hear it again. So "The River" at number 2. Number 1, what's it going to be? My favorite album of 1980, "Argy Bargy" by Squeeze. I love Squeeze. I love this record. This will always be my favorite Squeeze record. I think it was a career record for them. I know a lot of people may think East Side Story, the album that came after this, to be better. I disagree. It's got the immortal classics of "Pulling Muscles from a Shell," "Another Nail in My Heart," which we all know and love by Squeeze. But some of the lesser tracks, like lesser known tracks, "If I Didn't Love You," "Vicky Verky," "Separate Beds," "There at the Top," just great pop stuff. I remember my first discovery of this album was when we went to Austin on a Saturday, and I walked in a record store, and all the members of Squeeze were there. You'll see my album is autographed by all of them. And my wife played this thing to death. She loved it so much, and together we both loved it, and of course got to see Squeeze on this tour back then. And I just think it's a fantastic record, and still to this day one of the best records to come out of the whole era when pop and new wave were popular. But that's 1980 for you. Are we going to do 1981 next? I don't know. But thank you all for your support. Let me know what you think about my choices, what you think about your favorite records for 1980. Again, please help us out by hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and sharing these on your socials, and we'll be back at you again soon. This is Mike from Music City. Thanks.